let's talk about safe words, dirty talk, and discursive frames. So it is very common to use what's called non-literal speech within sexual interactions or sexual encounters. So let's see here. If you are having a sexual interaction with someone and they say, "Who's your daddy?" They're not really asking you, "Who is your father?" Right? That's not what that statement actually means. If somebody says, "Oh, you're such a bad boy," that is not really a statement about a person's moral character. Rather, these phrases or these words are being used within a sexual encounter in a non-standard way to convey something about mood or tone. They might be, being used as a way of enacting or setting up a scene within that sexual interaction. People use dirty talk within sexual interactions to kind of set up a mood or a scene. This is where what Kukla terms a discursive frame comes into play. So a discursive frame frames the scene or the sexual interaction so that within the context of the sexual interaction, the words that folks are using don't necessarily have their standard literal meaning. So, "Who's your daddy?" is really not a question about genealogy. When it's within a sexual scene, it has a different kind of significance. You can think of discursive frames that surround sexual scenes as being like a painting that's hanging on a wall. So whatever's inside the picture frame is sort of marked off. It's set apart from the things that are happening on the wall around it. Right? So whatever's going on inside the frame is its own sort of distinct scenario or kind of interaction that is different from what's happening outside the picture frame. However, that doesn't mean that the standard meaning of the words is just completely erased or gone while the scene is going on. Just like the wall continues to exist behind the picture frame, the standard meaning of the words continues to exist even during the scene, right? So it's not completely erased. Rather, it's that the meaning or the significance of those words within the scene is brought to the forefront. We'll come back to this point in just a sec. Dirty talk isn't the only form of non-literal speech used within sexual interactions. Safe words are another well-known example. So a safe word is a word that is used to cleanly and neatly end the sexual encounter. Sometimes people use a random word as a safe word, so something like avocado. Or sometimes they might use, the stoplight system, where green means thumbs up, yellow means caution, we are approaching my boundaries or my limits, pay particular attention to how I'm doing, and red means stop. In both cases, whether people are using a random word or the stoplight system, the word that's being used as a safe word isn't being used with its standard literal meaning. It's pretty obvious. If somebody says the word avocado after setting that up as their safe word, they're not just randomly talking about food within the sexual encounter. Rather, if they say that during sex, it means stop. Right? So within the scene, safe words have a particular kind of significance or force. Let's see here. Another place where we see non-literal speech being used within sexual interactions is in the context of different kinds of role play, or in contexts of folks exploring power play, especially things like domination or submission. So in some of these contexts, folks might set up a scene in which no doesn't always mean no. Be very, very careful with this point because I think it's very easy for things to go in a harmful direction if people don't fully understand this. So if folks have set up a scene which involves discussion and negotiation beforehand, if folks have set up a scene in which they are exploring different kinds of submission or domination, a person might say, "Oh, master, no, I can't take it anymore." And here, no or no more doesn't have its standard literal meaning. Instead, that utterance is part of the role playing. It's part of the scene. Now again, These sorts of scenes need to be discussed and negotiated beforehand. And crucially, it is very important that there be a way to end or exit the scene, typically using a safe word, right? So there always needs to be a way to end things, otherwise it's not genuinely consensual. I'll talk more about what goes into setting up a BDSM scene within the BDSM videos that come next. Okay, so one should absolutely never assume that if a person says no, that they somehow don't really mean it. If you haven't discussed and negotiated that kind of scenario and that kind of fantasy or exploration, if it hasn't been set up beforehand, do not assume that this is what's going on. It is very important to check in with the person and find out what is going on before continuing with the sexual encounter, if it turns out that that's something that everyone wishes to continue. Even when folks have set up a scene like this, where words like no or stop are part of the scene, it's really important that the words don't simply lose their standard meaning entirely. Rather, that meaning still exists outside of the discursive frame, and folks can still access that meaning. It's just not the only meaning, or it's not necessarily always at the forefront anymore. So this is why it's always important to pay attention to how one's sexual partner or partners are doing, and to continue to pay attention to how they are using those sorts of words. So if we continue to use our power play example, if somebody they've been saying phrases like, oh, master, no more, but then they say, oh, ow, fuck, stop, you're on my hair. It's pretty clear in that context that right there, stop genuinely does mean stop, right? So they're using the word stop by accessing its standard literal meaning outside of the discursive frame, right? So they're stepping outside the frame to use its more traditional meaning. If their partner hears that, they need to stop, even if the person has not used their safe word. So not using a safe word is not an excuse to just keep going. So paying attention to tone and other signals is always important, and it's especially important in these sorts of contexts where folks have established this kind of non-literal meaning for words within that discursive frame. So, in addition to ending a scene, safe words have this particular and really useful and important force. So safe words are a way to signal that the speaker is stepping out of the sexual discursive frame and back into our standard discursive or linguistic conventions, right? So if somebody uses a safe word, that is a way to signal the words that come next, what I say after this, has its sort of standard literal meaning. So let's see here. If we keep going back to our domination and submission scene, if somebody has been saying, oh, master, no more, stop, please stop. Fuck, strawberry. Stop for a second. I totally forgot that I had food in the oven. Shit, be right back. Okay, so the, oh, master, no more, stop, please stop in that example is clearly within the sexual discursive scene. Then they say the word strawberry, which is their safe word that signifies both things need to stop right now, but also that whatever they say next is outside of the sexual discursive frame, right? So now we're back to sort of the rest of life. And that's where they say, stop for a sec, I totally forgot I had food in the oven, I'll be right back. It's really useful to have a mechanism, to have a tool for moving us out of those sexual discursive frames. Once again, it's important that we don't just have a way to end the sexual encounter, but it's important that we have a way to sort of go back to our shared understanding of what these words mean as we are using them. All right, so dirty talk, role play, and all different kinds of non-literal speech can often play an exciting and important role within sexual interactions or encounters. People use these things to convey mood or tone, to sort of set the scene, to play out or enact different kinds of roles or scenarios within a scene. Sometimes different kinds of dirty talk or non-literal speech is used in a sort of, playful or exciting way, right? So these can be important tools to use within respectful, ethical sexual interactions. But they always require ongoing attention to one's partner or partners to be sure of how people are using these different statements or words or utterances. And they always involve ongoing check-ins to make sure that everyone is on the same page and that everyone is doing well within that sexual interaction. Yay!